Welcome to Learn English with Tech Leads with your hosts, Marcus and Sarah. Deconstructing world-class software architecture and engineering culture so you can master professional tech English. Let's dive in.
Picture this situation. You are a tech lead.
Okay.
It is Wednesday afternoon. You are right in the middle of a 2-week sprint.
The busiest time.
Exactly. You have your headphones on. You are deep into some very complex logic for a new API.
Yeah, you are completely focused.
And then a notification pops up on your screen. It is a Slack message from a product manager.
Oh, wow. I know exactly where this is going.
Right. The message says, hey, can we just add this real quick?
Huh?
It's not a big deal. Just one more field on the checkout form.
That is easily one of the most stressful messages an engineer can receive.
It really is.
Their focus is completely broken. And now you have to manage a sudden change in scope.
Exactly. Because you, as the tech lead, you know the unspoken reality.
Right.
The product manager thinks real quick just means drawing a new text box on the screen.
Yeah, just a UI update.
But you know the actual back-end requirements. Adding that one field means updating a database table.
Right.
It means writing new validation logic across, 3 different microservices and testing.
Yes, your QA team has to completely retest a user flow that was already approved.
So there is a massive disconnect here between what the business sees and what the engineering team actually has to build.
Exactly. And today, our deep dive focuses entirely on solving this exact problem.
Like a great topic.
We are looking at a framework from our source material, a 4-step framework on how to say no to a stakeholder in professional English.
Right.
The mission here is to handle these sudden requests without losing your credibility and without accidentally taking on work you cannot deliver.
You know, this isn't just about protecting your own time.
No.
This is a crucial leadership skill. It is about protecting your entire engineering team from burnout.
Yeah.
And managing the company's resources correctly?
Absolutely. But before we get into the actual framework, we have to talk about a major cultural challenge.
Yeah.
And a linguistic challenge, too.
Yeah.
This is especially relevant for you, our listener, as an ESL learner.
Right, for Spanish-speaking developers. Yes. In Spanish business culture, we often use context to say no. We soften the rejection to be polite. We might say something like, déjame ver qué puedo hacer, which translates to, let me see what I can do.
Right.
But in an English-speaking environment, translating that politeness directly causes a huge problem.
It creates a lot of confusion.
It really does.
Because in American or British business culture, trying to soften a no often sounds like you are actually saying yes.
Exactly.
The product manager hears that and assumes the work is going to get done.
Which means we set ourselves up for failure before we even write a line of code.
Right. We fall into the trap of the soft no.
Yes, we freeze up. We don't want to create conflict with the business side, so we give a vague answer.
And our source material actually highlights how dangerous this is. When an engineering manager freezes up during that Slack conversation, they usually make one of 2 big mistakes.
Okay, let's get into those mistakes.
The first mistake is accepting the request using hopeful, vague language.
Right. And the text uses a specific phrase for this consequence. It says you end up on the hook.
Oh, let's pause and teach that phrase, on the hook.
Yes, it's an important idiom. For anyone unfamiliar with it, think of a fish caught on a fisherman's line.
Right, the fish is trapped.
Exactly. In business English, being on the hook means you are now professionally obligated to deliver something. You are held responsible for it.
So by giving a polite but vague answer, you put yourself on the hook for code you simply do not have time to write.
You trap yourself.
You do. The source gives a classic example of this mistake. The developer wants to be helpful, so they reply, I'll try to squeeze it in.
Oh, let's look at that phrase too. Squeeze it in.
Yeah, let's explain that.
If you squeeze something in, it means you fit a task into a tight schedule, a schedule that is already completely full.
Right.
It usually implies you will have to work late or rush the code just to make it fit.
And the reason saying I'll try to squeeze it in is such a huge mistake is because of how stakeholders hear it.
How do they hear it?
Stakeholders do not hear the word try.
Oh.
They only hear a commitment. They expect that extra form field to be in the final release.
So what happens on a Friday afternoon when the sprint ends and that extra feature is not there?
Well, the source material says your credibility takes a hit.
Let's explicitly pause for that idiom, too. Takes a hit.
Right. It just means it suffers damage.
Yeah.
Your reputation suffers damage.
You lose trust.
Exactly. The product manager doesn't look at the situation and think,
Oh, I guess the sprint had too much scope.
No, they don't.
No, they think this engineering manager made a promise and broke it.
Wow. I have seen that happen so many times. The developer thought they were being polite by trying to help, but the business side just sees a failure to deliver.
Right.
So the first mistake is that soft, vague acceptance. But the source says the second mistake is going to the complete opposite extreme.
Yes, it is. The second mistake is the blunt, direct no.
Like just saying no.
Yeah, you just reply, no, we can't do that this sprint.
Well, I can see why developers do that. It feels honest.
It does.
It sets a clear boundary.
It is definitely honest, but it is terrible communication. A blunt no shuts down the conversation immediately.
Right.
It leaves zero room to negotiate. From the stakeholder's perspective, it feels like you are just blocking their progress.
It damages your relationship because it looks like you do not care about the company's business goals.
Exactly.
It is like ignoring a check engine light in your car, meaning ignoring a small warning sign now will cause a complete engine failure later.
That's a great way to put it.
If you constantly shut down the product team with a blunt no, the working relationship will eventually break down completely.
Right. So the core problem identified in our text is that developers lack a structured format for these difficult conversations.
We need a format.
Yes. When we do not have a plan, we default to either caving or fighting.
We should pause and define caving really quickly.
Good idea.
In a negotiation, caving means giving up. It means surrendering to the other person's demands because the pressure is just too high.
Right. You say yes simply because you want the uncomfortable Slack conversation to end.
Precisely. We need a way to acknowledge the request, explain the technical reality, and leave the door open for collaboration.
All without caving.
Yes, without caving. And that brings us to the 4-step framework from the source.
Let's get into it.
The first 2 steps are entirely about listening and grounding the conversation in engineering reality.
Okay, let's break this down. Step 1 is acknowledge the request without ambiguity.
So the primary rule here is to avoid jumping straight to judgment.
Right.
You have to prove that you understand exactly what the stakeholder is asking for before you explain why it is difficult.
This stops the conversation from feeling like a defensive rejection right at the start.
Okay, so if I am applying this in Slack, I should not say, that is a bad idea, or we don't have time for that.
Right, or not say that.
I should just mirror their request.
Exactly.
The source suggests saying something like, got it, you'd like to add a new field to the checkout form before Friday.
Yes. You are literally just repeating their goal back to them.
It proves, yeah.
You're on the same page.
Right.
It calms the situation down. And once you have acknowledged their need, you can smoothly move to step 2.
Which is name the real constraint, not a vague excuse.
The author notes that this is the exact moment where most tech leads fail.
Why is that?
Because they rely on vague phrases. They see things like, it's complicated, or it's not that simple.
And to a non-technical person, it is complicated sounds like a fake excuse.
It really does.
It sounds like the engineer's just being lazy or resisting the extra work.
That is exactly how it is perceived. So to avoid that, you have to give the specific technical reason why the request is difficult.
You have to name the actual barrier.
Yes. For example, you should say, that new field touches 3 different services and requires a schema migration. It's not a UI-only change.
Okay, let's pause. The term schema migration comes up a lot here. It is common jargon for us, but it is important to know how to explain it simply to a stakeholder if they ask.
Yeah.
A schema migration is a fundamental structural change to how the database is organized.
Right.
It requires careful timing, new scripts, and heavy testing so you do not accidentally delete or break existing user data.
It is a major operation. It's not a quick fix.
I do want to push back on this step a bit, though.
Okay.
Because a lot of engineering managers are terrified of using technical jargon like schema migration with business stakeholders.
Oh, absolutely.
They worry the product manager won't understand it, so they intentionally dumb it down to it's complicated.
It is a very common fear. But the source material argues that dumbing it down is a mistake.
Really?
Yes. Naming the specific technical constraint is actually a powerful communication tool.
How so?
Even if the product manager does not completely understand database architecture, they hear a specific tangible noun.
Right.
They hear schema migration, and they realize there's a mechanical barrier in the software.
Wow, I hadn't thought of it that way. You are actually using the rejection as a chance to educate the product team. Yeah. You educate them on how the back end works. You are showing them that you are managing a complex system, not just trying to avoid work.
It shifts the entire dynamic. You are treating them like a smart partner by explaining the reality of the software.
So that covers the first half of the framework.
Right.
We have heard them out in step 1.
Right.
We have explained the technical wall in step 2. But if we just stop typing right there, the door is still closed.
Yes, it is.
We have basically just said a polite no and left them empty-handed. How do we keep the project moving forward?
You're right. Stopping there is incomplete. The next 2 steps are designed to shift the problem and the power back over to the stakeholder.
Okay.
This is how you transition from rejecting them to collaborating with them.
I love that.
So step 3 is offer a concrete alternative.
This means we should not just leave the timeline open. We should not say, maybe we can do it later.
Never say maybe later. That puts you right back on the hook.
Right.
The strategy here is to always give 2 clear, distinct paths forward. By offering 2 choices, you force the stakeholder to take responsibility for the trade-off.
The example in the text makes this really clear.
What is it?
You tell the stakeholder, I can have the new field ready by the 15th if we put it in the next sprint. Or we could ship a simpler version by this Friday, but it won't have the back-end validation logic. Which of those matters more to you?
It is a brilliant move.
It really is.
You are forcing them to participate in the physical reality of software engineering. Do they want it fast or do they want it perfect?
They cannot have both, so they have to choose.
Exactly.
It is like being a head chef, meaning the person running a busy restaurant kitchen.
Right.
If a customer demands a well-done steak in 5 minutes, you do not just yell no at the waiter. You offer a choice based on physical constraints.
Yes.
You say, they can wait 20 minutes for the steak, or they can have a fresh salad in 5 minutes. Ask them what they prefer.
That is a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
You do not control the customer's timeline, but you do control the kitchen's reality.
Exactly.
Which leads naturally into the final phase. Step 4 is close by asking for confirmation.
So ending the conversation with a direct question, rather than a statement they can just ignore.
Exactly. The source suggests wrapping up the Slack message with something like, does that timeline work for you? Or is there a hard deadline I should know about?
I really like that specific phrasing. Is there a hard deadline I should know about?
It's very effective.
It shows that you are taking their requests seriously.
It does. It shows empathy.
Yeah.
But practically, it also uncovers hidden business context.
Right. Maybe there is a massive marketing campaign launching on Friday.
Exactly.
And this specific form field is absolutely required to track the campaign's budget. If you just say a blunt no, the entire marketing launch fails.
Yes.
By asking about the deadline, you invite the product manager to share the bigger picture.
And once you know the bigger picture, you stop being an obstacle. You become a partner trying to solve a shared business problem.
Okay, so the 4 steps sound incredibly clean in theory.
They do.
You acknowledge the request, you name the technical constraint, you offer alternatives, and you confirm the deadline.
Right.
But let's talk about the real world, because the real world is messy.
Oh, very messy.
What happens when the stakeholder pushes back? What happens when you explain the schema migration and they still insist the work is easy?
The source material addresses this exact scenario. But before we look at the script for handling pushback, there are 2 important industry terms we need to understand.
Okay, let's pause and teach them.
Scope creep and fast follow.
Let's start with scope creep. It is a major pain point for every senior developer.
It really is. Scope creep happens when the features of a project slowly increase beyond the original agreed-upon plan.
Right.
It is dangerous because it happens gradually.
Yeah.
A stakeholder asks for 1 extra button on Monday, then an extra text field on Wednesday.
And suddenly, your 2-week sprint requires 4 weeks of work.
Exactly. The scope of the project has quietly crept up and ruined your timeline.
It is the silent killer of engineering teams. And what about a fast follow?
A fast follow is actually a strategy to prevent scope creep.
Okay.
It refers to a quick software update released immediately after a main launch.
So you launch the core product on time to hit your deadline.
Right.
Then you release the minor extra features a few days later as a fast follow.
Exactly.
Got it. So let's look at the real-world scenario from the text.
Okay.
It is mid-sprint. You are dealing with a scope creep request. The stakeholder urgently wants to add an export to CSV button before Friday's release.
Very common.
You do everything right. You use the 4 steps. You acknowledge the button. You explain the constraint. It requires a new endpoint, so it is not a same-day change.
Right.
You offer 2 alternatives: delay the launch or launch on time and add the button next week as a fast follow. You ask if that works.
You structured it perfectly. No apologies, just clear trade-offs.
But this is where the pushback happens. The stakeholder replies, "I really think this should be quick, though."
Oh, that is so frustrating.
It is a terrible moment. The stakeholder is directly minimizing your work.
It is the critical moment of the interaction. Your natural instinct is to get defensive.
Of course.
You want to argue about how hard your job is, but the source material says you must avoid that trap completely.
So how do we reply?
The strategy is to ignore their assessment of the difficulty and immediately pivot back to the physical constraint.
Okay.
Here is the exact response recommended in the text. I hear you on the urgency. The constraint is the schema migration. That part doesn't get faster with more people on it. Given that, does the timeline change your read on shipping without it, or is the button a blocker either way?
Let's explicitly pause and define blocker real quick.
Good call.
A blocker is an issue that completely prevents a project from moving forward. If this button is a blocker, it means the company cannot launch the software without it.
Exactly. It is a binary state. It is either a blocker or it's not.
What fascinates me about this specific response is the psychology behind it.
Yeah, why is it so effective?
Because the stakeholder practically insulted your engineering estimation, but you did not defend yourself at all.
And that is why it works. You go back to the concrete constraint instead of defending your entire decision.
Right.
You keep the conversation focused on the trade-off, not on whether the tech lead is right or wrong about the difficulty.
You just reflect the immovable reality of the database back to them. Adding more people to a schema migration does not make it finish faster.
It's a brick wall, meaning it is a solid obstacle that you simply cannot negotiate with.
Exactly. You keep the entire focus on the business trade-off. You force them back into making a business decision.
It's incredibly powerful. You stay calm, you stay professional, and you force them to prioritize.
We have covered a huge amount of ground today on how to navigate these conversations. Let's summarize the 4 beats of this framework so it sticks.
It really just comes down to 4 distinct actions.
Let's hear them.
First, you hear them out and acknowledge the request so they know you were listening.
Right.
Second, you name the actual technical wall in your way using real terms like schema migration, not vague excuses.
Okay.
Third, you hand them 2 alternative paths to keep the project moving. And fourth, you ask them to confirm the timeline or deadline.
Acknowledge. Constraint. Alternative.
Yeah.
Confirm.
Yes.
The source material actually leaves us with a specific weekly practice assignment, a highly actionable takeaway.
Think of it as your homework for the next sprint.
Yeah.
The very next time you get an out-of-scope request, whether it is a direct message on Slack, in a stand-up meeting, or in an email, do not answer instantly.
Stop typing.
Exactly. Take a breath. Structure your reply into these exact 4 sentences before you respond.
1 sentence to acknowledge, 1 to explain the constraint, 1 for the alternatives, 1 to confirm.
The text notes that if you can type or say those 4 sentences in under a minute, you answer without ambiguity. And you protect your sprint.
You will never end up on the hook for work your team cannot support.
Yeah.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with one final, larger career perspective.
It's an important point.
Think about this. When you stop using vague excuses and you start actively managing trade-offs with this 4-step framework, how does it change your professional image?
It completely redefines how management sees you.
Absolutely. You stop sounding like a developer who just wants to avoid extra work.
Right.
And you start sounding like a strategic business partner. You sound like a leader who manages company resources effectively.
Communication is not just about language.
No, it is not.
It is about leadership.
It really is.
Yeah.
So the next time that Slack notification pops up mid-sprint, how will you choose to lead?
That's a wrap. If this breakdown helped, hit subscribe on YouTube so you don't miss a lesson. Keep learning, and we'll see you next time.